Good day, everyone. This is Mom D again, and welcome back. So, for the first 2 weeks of our third quarter, our first lesson will be all about mathematical system. So, medyo mas mahaba itong video na to compared before because there are important terms na kailangan nyo maintindihan. So, I hope you will stay with me until the end of this video and you will understand this lesson very well. Okay, so to start our lesson, so as you can see, meron tayo ditong animated picture. Okay, so kung mapapansin nyo, ito ay nag-uumpisa sa isang dot lang and then it will go or spread horizontally forming a line of dots and then afterwards magpo-form siya ng several lines forming a shape, okay, which is square. So actually, this picture, pinapakita nito ang isa sa importanteng part of the mathematical system, which is the undefined terms, which is the point, the line, and the plane, which later on I will discuss. So what is the objective of this lesson? Okay, of course, that is for you to be able to understand what is a mathematical system, as well as for you to define and illustrate each part of the mathematical system, which are undefined terms, defined terms, postulates or axioms, and lastly is the theorems. But for this video, magfo-focus lang tayo with the first two parts, okay? And that is the undefined terms and defined terms kasi masyado siyang mahaba kung lahat ay i-discuss ko in just one video. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so let's start defining what is a mathematical system. So generally, it is a logical study of shape, arrangement, and quantity. Okay, so of course, pag narinig nyo yung salitang shape, ang pumapasok agad sa isip nyo is geometry. And geometry is just one of the examples of mathematical system. Other examples are algebra, trigonometry, and calculus. Okay? So, but then for this third quarter, ang focus natin ay geometry. Okay? So, in geometry, there are four terms or four parts of the mathematical systems. Okay? At iyon ay nabanggit ko na kanina. So, these are the undefined terms, defined terms, postulates, and theorems. So, and like what I've said, mag-focus lang tayo with the first two. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Okay, so undefined terms. So from the name itself, alam nyo na agad ang magiging definition yan, okay? So these are terms that have no definition in the system. But instead, these terms are either described or illustrated. So wala siyang definition. At kanina sa motivation part, nabanggit ko na kung ano itong mga undefined terms na ito. And these are point, line, and a plane. Okay? So, I think review na lang to para sa inyo. Okay, so what is a point? So, from the figure kanina, so I guess meron na kayo idea, and I know naman, alam nyo, this is the basic term of all geometric concepts. Okay, parang ito yung pinaka-foundation ng lahat. So, a point has a what? If we are going to describe, kasi nga sabi, walang definition. So, if you are going to describe what is a point, okay, it has a location. Okay, it has a location, but it has no size. Kasi nga, point lang siya. It's a dot. Kumbaga, in real life, what represents a point? A tip of your pen, a tip of your hair. So, that's it. So, it has no size. And how are you going to name a point? So, in naming a point, we use capital letters. So, like, for example, this one. So, we have point A. What else? We can have point B or point X. So that's how we name a point using a capital letter. Next. So for the next undefined term, so that is a line. So kanina sa motivation part, as you can see, after a dot, nag-form siya ng line, yung dots. Okay, so if we are going to describe this line, a line is what? A line is a set of points. So actually, it's an infinite number of points. Okay, so a line is a set of points. And how are you going to describe? Okay, a line doesn't have a thickness. Okay, it has no thickness, but it has infinite length. Bakit siya infinite length? Walang katapusan yung haba niya. Or you cannot tell what's the length of a line. Kasi class, if you're going to illustrate a line, we always have these two ends, the arrowheads. Okay, the arrowheads. So it only indicates that continue siya sa magkabilang dulo. So wala siyang katapusan. That's why a line doesn't have, or rather, okay, doesn't have a definite length. Okay, it has an infinite length. So that's a line. And how are you going to name a line? So in naming a line, we can use small letter, okay, or lowercase letter. So like for example, we will use the letter M. So for this one, if we are going to name that, so that is, okay, line M. Or also, you can use 2 points on the line. So pili lang kayo. So like for example, we have here point L, and we have point N. So naming that line, we will use the symbol line, which is this one. So ayan lang, yung parang maliit lang na line, and then below are the 2 letters that you are going to use. Okay, from the 2 points on the line. So that is line N. So kailangan nyo lang kumuha ng 2 points on the line. So how about kung meron kang 3 points? Okay, let's say we have here point X. So pwede nyo rin siyang i-name or pangalanan as line, what? Line LX. What else? Line XN. So that's it. As long as gagamit lang kayo ng 2 points on the line. Okay? And lastly is the plane. Kung ang line is a set of points or formed by from a set of points, so ang plane naman, class, has an infinite number of lines. So parang kanina, after forming a line of dots and then nag-spread out siya, nag-form siya ng several lines of points, so meron na tayong plane. So that's why, okay, for a plane, if we are going to describe that, a plane, what? It has length, but, okay, it has no thickness. It has length and width this time, but it has no thickness. Kumbaga, plane is just a flat surface. Okay, so flat surface lang siya that extends along its length and width, okay? And it contains infinite number of lines, tulad ng sinabi ko kanina. And how are you going to name a plane? So when it comes to planes, so like for example, we have this. We have that plane. Okay. In naming a plane, so we're going to use a single capital letter. Okay, so like for example, we have that. So if you're going to name, so that will be plane M. Or you can use 3 points on the plane, which are rather not lying on the same line. Okay, so like for example, we have point A, we have point B, and we have point C. So if we are going to name that, so that will be plane A, B, C. So ganyan tayo pag nag-name ng plane. So those are the 3 undefined terms. From a point, nagkaroon ng line. From the line, nagkaroon tayo ng plane. Okay? Okay, so punta naman tayo sa second part of the mathematical system, which is the defined terms. Okay, so defined terms. So obviously, these are terms with definition. Okay, so a definition is a statement of the meaning of a word, term, phrase, or any specific concept. So parang for this one, when it comes to defined terms, these terms are defined using the undefined terms, okay? Kumbaga, pinapaliwanag ang defined terms using those undefined terms na nabanggit ko kanina. Okay, so we have a lot of defined terms in geometry. Pero umpisahan natin with these two, okay, which are ray and line segment. These two are just part of a line kung natatandaan nyo. Okay, pero as a review, so recall natin, ano ba yung tinatawag na ray? So, sabi ko nga kanina, part lang siya ng line. So, for example, we have here a line. Okay, and we have points on the line. Let's say we have point A. Okay. Point B. And point C. Okay, so sorry, medyo nagwe-wave ang aking line. Di siya straight, but just imagine that is a straight line. Okay, so for that one, sabi ko kanina, ang ray and line segments, these are just part of the line. So what is a ray? So this part of the line, okay, so from point A, so that is an example of a ray. So ibig sabihin, class, ang ray, so there is an endpoint and there is one arrowhead. Okay? So that is a ray, or pwede rin ganito siya, yung other part. Okay? So paano tayo mag-name ng ray? So in naming a ray, of course, you have to use 2 points. So let's say, i-consider natin itong buo na to for this one. Okay, so therefore that will be, so parang ito ay point B at ito ay point A. So ang pag-name class, you always starts with the endpoint. Okay? You always start with the endpoint. So therefore for this one, that is ray B A. So iyan ang pag-name or ganyan ang pag-name ng ray. And for the other one, so this is, kuhanin ko naman yung other half of the line na na-draw ko kanina. So this is point P and this is C. So pag in-name natin yung ray na yan, so that will be ray, start with the endpoint, B, C. Okay, ma'am, pwede rin bang sabihin or pangalanan is like for this one? Okay, so that will be, so it, okay, ray, A, C. So, ganyan siya when it comes to ray. So, meron siyang isang arrowhead and isang endpoint. How about the line segment? So, for the line segment, so part pa rin siya ng line, pero ang line segment class, okay, so ito siya. We have 2 endpoints. Okay, so if I will draw that separately, so ganito ang itsura ng line segments. Meron tayong endpoints. So let's say this is point A and this is point B. So that is a line segment or a segment. So pag line segment na siya, meron na siyang definite length. Okay, pwede mo na siyang sukatin. Pero about ray, still ang ray natin, it has infinite length. Kasi meron pa rin tayong isang arrowhead. It means nag-extend siya on one side. Okay, pero ang line segment, meron tayong exact length or definite length for that. Kasi meron tayong dalawang endpoint. So, paano tayo mag-name ng line segment? So, naming a line segment, so we will use the symbol, just this one without the arrowheads. And then, kahit baliktarin nyo yung dalawang letter, okay lang. So, it can be segment AB or segment PA. So, that's it. Okay? Kung kukuha pa tayo doon sa line, from this line ng other segments, so we can have segment AC or segment CB. So those. So that is a line segment. Okay? Okay, so this time I will discuss more defined terms. So I will illustrate it. So illustrate ko ang bawat term. Okay, and I will also provide an if-then form statement for each term. So, di ba na-discuss ko na before, what is a conditional statement? So, meron tayong hypothesis and we have the conclusion. Okay, so let's start with, okay, first is the midpoint. Midpoint, okay? So, what is a midpoint? It is the point, okay, on that line segment that divides the segment into two congruent segments. Okay, so here, we're talking about segments, okay? So, we have a segment. So, sabi natin ang segment, meron siyang two endpoints. So, if I'm going to illustrate that one, so that will be, let's say this is point A, and this is point B. Okay, so what is a midpoint? A point on the line segment that divides the segment into two congruent segments. Okay, so when we say congruent, okay, so it means magkapareho. They are of the same size and shape. Okay? Congruent. So, parang ang gagawin lang, meron tayong point na hahati sa ating line segments into two equal parts. So, let's say, so I have here point X. So, that point X divides the segments into two congruent parts. Okay? So, this is the symbol for congruent. So, ibig sabihin, same length yung dalawang nahati na part. Okay? Yung segment AX, okay, and segment XB, they are equal. So, doon sa sinabi ko, so yun na yun. That will be our if-then form. So, it's like, okay, so if, okay, so if, ano bang ating midpoint? If point X is the, okay, so it is the midpoint, then what? Then what will happen? So we have two congruent segments. Okay, so segment AX is equal to segment XB. So that's it. So that is a midpoint. Hinahati niya ang segment into two equal parts. Okay, so next is the segment bisector. So what is a segment bisector? It is a line or array or a segment which cuts another line segment into two equal parts. So kanina, humati lang sa segment natin is a point, but this time, meron tayong tinatawag na segment bisector na humahati sa line segment. So pwede siyang line, pwede siyang ray, or pwede siyang another segment. So if I'm going to illustrate that one, so first, meron tayong, okay, so first we have the segment. So let's say, so that is segment X, Y, and that segment will be cut by what? Let's say by another, okay, by another segment. So meron tayo, or magto-draw ako ng another segment here. Okay. So let's say that is segment M, N. Okay? And let's say ito, kung saan nag-intersect yung dalawang segments, so that is that is point C. Okay, so sabi kanina, ano yung condition? It will cut, okay, the segment into two equal parts. So it means that this part, segment XC, is congruent to segment CY. So they have equal length. Okay? So how are we going to formulate our if-then statement? So, if, ano yung ating segment bisector? If segment, segment MN, okay, if segment MN, okay, bisects, okay, segment XY, then, what will be our conclusion? Then, segment XC is what? Is congruent to segment CY. So that's it. Okay, I hope you understand that one. Okay, so for our next term, so that is angle bisector. So kanina segment bisector, this time angle bisector. So ano naman ngayon ang hinahati into two equal parts? That is the angle. So an angle bisector is a ray that divides the angle into two angles with equal measures. Okay, so like for example, so to illustrate that one, so let's say I have an angle. Okay, so let's say this angle is angle A, B, C. Okay, so, and I will have a ray that divides that angle into two equal parts. Okay, so let's say that's a ray B, D. So sabi natin kanina, it divides the angle into two equal parts. So therefore, if you are going to measure this angle and this angle, they are congruent, okay, or they are equal. So if we are going to formulate an if-then statement, so that will be if, what is a ray that bisects the angle? So if ray BD, so itong part na to, yung nasa gitna, okay, bisects angle what? Bisects angle ABC, then what? It will form what? So then angle ABD is congruent to angle DBC. Okay? Because that angle bisector BD, okay, bisects angle ABC. Kaya tayo nagkaroon ng two congruent angles. Okay, for the next term, we have the complementary angles and the supplementary angles. So, pagsabayin na natin, but as you can see, the only difference of these two, when we say complementary angles, we're dealing with two angles. Okay, pag pinag-add mo yung kanilang, or ang measure ng kanilang angles, so that should be equals to 90 degrees, complementary. Pero pag siya ay supplementary angles, these are two angles na pag pinag-add nyo yung measure ng dalawang angle, dapat siya ay equals 180 degrees. Okay? If I'm going to illustrate the first one, so like for example, I have the first angle. So let's say ang first angle ko is, okay, let's say this is angle ABC. Okay. So, and ang measure niya is like 15 degrees. So, and the other angle will be, okay, let's say this is angle DEF. So, para sila ay maging complementary angle, dapat sila ay mag-equal sa 90. So, this other angle should be equal to 60, or rather, it should be 75. Okay, so there you go. So you can see 75 plus 15, so equals just 90 degrees. Okay, so paano natin gagawin ang ating if-then form statement? So if angle ABC and angle DEF are complementary angles, then the measure of angle ABC, because we're talking about sum, plus the measure of angle DEF is equal to 90 degrees. Okay, so that's it. So next is for the supplementary angles. So let's say, for example, we have this angle. Let's say that's angle X. Okay, the measure of that angle is, let's say 45 degrees. And we have another angle. Let's say that's angle Y. So the measure of that angle is, 135 degrees. Bakit kailangan 135? Kasi nga supplementary sila eh. Pag pinag-add mo, dapat 180 degrees. So for our if-then statement, so if angle X and angle Y are what? Are supplementary. Okay, supplementary angles. Then what? Then the measure of angle X plus measure of angle Y is equal to 180 degrees. Okay, so that's for those two types of pair of angles. Okay, so I guess that's enough terms already kasi medyo mahaba ng ating video. So let's deal with this example. So I have here a given statement and then we will give the conclusion and reason. But I think it's better for this one na illustrate muna natin bago natin bigyan siya ng reason and conclusion. Okay, for that one, if Y is the midpoint of segment XC, okay, so let's draw a segment. So let's say, so that's segment X, C, and it says there that Y is the midpoint, so at the middle of the segment. So therefore, if that is the case, we can conclude that segment XY is congruent to segment YZ. Okay, so segment XY is congruent to segment YZ or XZ. So what will be the reason? Definition of what? Definition of a midpoint. Okay, so that's it. Okay, so for our last example, let's deal with this. So if angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary, so what will be the conclusion and what will be the reason? So to illustrate first, so if angle 1 and angle 2, okay, are complementary. So it means that pag pinag-add mo siya, the answer should be 90 degrees. So that's it. Because they are complementary, the conclusion, then the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 should be equal to 90 degrees. So what will be your reason? So your reason is the definition of what? Definition of complementary angles. So that's it. So that's all for today. So I hope naintindihan nyo tong lesson na to, though medyo mahaba. Okay, hindi pa nga enough yung time para ma-discuss ko lahat. But then, if you understand, please like this video. And if you have any question, just post it in the comment section below. Okay, so that's all. Bye-bye.